The fact that you are attending this session or viewing this session later time shows your dedication to want to have a excellent meeting during your upcoming meeting. And the most important thing you can do ahead of time is to be prepared. Review the information you have questions ready, and arrive early. What is the goal of the technical committee meeting? To have an orderly and efficient meeting. Make sure that everything that needs to be done gets done and that everyone is treated fairly. Everyone has an opportunity to participate, keep redundancy to a minimum, and allow the members to make the most informed decisions. The first item of business will be the roll call. Members must be present. For the voting members to receive their voting cards, they will be seated separately from the non-voting members at tables, while the non-voting members will be seated at the back of the room. The next item of business will be to adopt standing rules. These are the rules of procedure for this meeting that do not conflict with your governing documents. And the purpose of these rules is to facilitate an orderly and fair process to allow for best informed decisions. As Nicole stated, the sample rules I'm going to review right now is just to give you an idea of what the rules might say. These are not the standing rules you're going to have presented to you. They might be, but they'll probably be changed. I just wanted to give you an idea of what we're talking about. Proponents will be given an opportunity to present their proposal. Only questions seeking information about that proposal will be asked directly to the proponent, who has the ability to respond to each question as it is asked or at the end of their presentation, whatever they choose. Asking and answering these questions is not intended to steer debate. It's just to obtain information. The proponent is not limited to 2 times to speak during the presentation portion. This is to provide you with as much information you have to help you make decisions, to find out why and more information about whatever they're proposing. After an opportunity to answer questions, the proponent will be seated and allow the chair to entertain any motions regarding that proposal. Participants who want to speak in debate must line up at the mic and wait to be recognized by the chair before speaking, and then start with their name and affiliation before making any comments. All remarks during debate on the motion are to be addressed to and through the chair. Debate is limited to 2 times for each member for 2 minutes for each speech and is confined to the merits of the pending motion. The proponent's presentation is considered separate from their 2 opportunities to speak in debate. The member making the motion will have preference and recognition if they have not already spoken. And someone who has not spoken in debate has a right to be recognized before a member who has already spoken. The chair is the person, the individual that is responsible for enforcing the rules, and members have the right to raise a point of order. Again, this is just a sample. These are not the standing rules, but gives you an idea what standing rules do. They govern an orderly process that is fair to allow for best informed decisions. The next item of business will be to adopt an agenda. You might ask, what can a member do if the chair or member stray from the agenda? It's very simple. Without being recognized, you just call out, I call for the orders of the day. And that's a very polite way of saying, hey, Mr. Chairman, let's get back to the agenda. We adopted the agenda. We expect to follow the agenda. And this is the way that you enforce that. And then you might ask, what can a member do if harm will be done because a procedure is not being followed? And the answer is raise a point of order. To raise a point of order, you do have to be recognized. And then you state your point. If the chair agrees with you, they says your point is well taken. If they disagree, you say your point is not well taken. And if the members disagree with the chair's ruling, they can say, I appeal from the decision of the chair. It requires a second, and then the members get to decide regarding whatever procedure you're appealing from. Okay, at your technical committee meeting, again, you have your voting members who will be seated separately from your non-voting participants, and you have the presiding officer in the middle who is presiding over the meeting to enforce the rules to keep order. Committee members must be credentialed, attend meetings, make motions, debate, go to the mic, wait for recognition. Again, give your name, and the company affiliation. This is important because when you go to the mic, if you don't identify who you are and your company, people are going to be thinking, who is that person? Who is that person affiliated with? Are they still with that company? I thought they'd moved to a different company, and they're not going to be listening to what you're saying. So it's very important to do that for the members to focus on what you're saying. Again, 2 times for 2 minutes, and you will use a voting card when you vote. The assembly. When you have business being conducted, a quorum must be present to validly transact business. It's the committee members who make the decisions, the members that have the right to vote. If you have a motion on the floor and you want to change it, it's a motion to amend, which requires only a majority vote to adopt. It still requires a 2/3 vote to authorize an item for a letter ballot and a 2/3 vote to take away the rights by limiting debate, extending debate, or closing debate. And then you have the presiding officer, the chair. They announce the business and the order based on the agenda. And if you haven't presided at a meeting, it really is quite difficult because you're trying to remember what you're supposed to say. You're listening to what the member's saying. You're paying attention to what they're doing, and you're trying to figure out what they're saying and doing affects what you had planned to do. So if someone happens to skip something on the agenda, just say, Mr. President, I call for the orders of the day. You skip this, this, or that. The chair's duty is to protect the assembly by enforcing the rules of procedure, which will expedite business. The chair is the one that decides questions of order. So if you say point of order, it's the chair that makes a decision. The chair recognizes the members to speak without interruption. And once you're recognized, you have the right to speak without interruption. And the chair will state the motion so the assembly knows what is before them. The chair should alternate debate if possible. I don't know if you have 1 mic or 2 mics, but if you have 2 mics, it's very easy for, members in favor to go 1 mic and members opposed to go to the other mic. If you don't follow that system, the first thing you should say, and we'll talk about that in debate, is state your position. After debate ceases, the chair will take the vote after restating the motion, so you know exactly what you're voting on. And it's very important how the chair states the motion at this time, because that is the motion that you're voting on. That is the motion that will go into the minutes. And then announce the results of the vote after you vote. Again, the order of the presentations are based on the agenda. The proponent will give the presentation, and individuals will have an opportunity to ask questions to the proponent regarding whatever product they're presenting. During the presentations, individuals ask questions directed to the proponent. During debate, everything is directed to the chair or to and through the chair. Everyone must be recognized before speaking. When a motion is introduced, a committee member will make the motion. Another committee member seconds the motion, not meaning they're necessarily in favor of the motion. They're only seconding the motion to say, I am in favor of taking the time to consider this motion during this meeting. And then the chair again states the motion so that the members know what motion is being debated. During debate, you can also have requests for information. Comments during debate are directed to and through the chair. That means you are looking at the presiding officer when you speak in debate, because as soon as you turn around and look at the other members, they are going to start wondering, why are they looking at me? It's like in school when we're in a classroom, the teacher look at you and you're like, why is the teacher looking at me? You stop paying attention to what the person is saying. As long as a person is looking at the chair and directing their comments to the chair, people are listening to what you're saying. Comments must relate to the merits of the pending motion, and request for information is a tool to ask a question to obtain additional information. It is not providing an opinion. Members vote to go to letter ballot. When debate ceases, the chair puts the motion to vote. Previous question can be used to close debate and proceed to vote. This motion requires a second and a 2/3 vote. Very common, someone will just shout out question. That's not a motion. You should be recognized. You need to have a second. And as soon as you have a second, the chair will say, those in favor of closing debate, raise your cards. And it's a counted vote unless it's obvious. It's up to the chair if you want to take a counted vote or not a counted vote. But it takes a 2/3 vote to close debate. If you vote yes to close debate is closed and you'll proceed to go to the vote on whether or not that item goes to letter ballot. If you vote no, that you don't get 2/3 vote to close debate, then you continue with the debate. So that's a very important concept for everyone to understand. It's a 2-step process. First, you vote on the motion to close debate. And if it's adopted, then you vote on the motion that is on the floor. Okay, the presentation and the question to proponent. This is what it sounds like. And when you listen to me today, and when you listen during the meeting, the presiding officer is going to sound like a parrot because you keep saying the same thing over and over and over again. For every item, the chair's going to say the item of business is item number, whatever it is. That is the one thing you're considering at this time. The chair recognizes the proponent. The proponent will give the presentation and invite questions. Then the motion will be introduced. After the proponent sits down and the chair rises and resumes control of the meeting, the chair will recognize member at mic, whatever mic it is. Again, state your name and your company affiliation. And then you say, Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman, whatever the case is, I move to authorize proposal 35, items 163 and 164 for letter ballot. Second, the chair will restate it. It is moved and seconded to authorize proposal 35 and items 163 and 164 for letter ballot. Is there any debate? This is your opportunity to speak in debate. The chair recognizes the member at whatever mic. Again, name and company. I speak in favor of the motion, or I speak against the motion. What's the most important thing you can do is state your position. Because if you state your position at the beginning of your debate, members aren't there thinking, well, are they speaking for it or are they speaking against it? And they're not paying attention to your reasons. So you state your position and then you give your reasons. And it's always good to give 2-3 reasons using full, compound sentences for people to understand what you're trying to say. And then you end your debate reminding members how to vote. I urge members to vote yes. I urge members to vote no. I cannot tell you how many times I've sat at a meeting and the debate was absolutely awesome. I was very impressed with what the person said. However, they didn't remind me how they wanted me to vote, and I couldn't remember if they were in favor of it or if they were opposed to it because I was so engrossed in what they had to say and what the reasons were. So it's important to remind members how to vote. And then the chair will ask, is there any further debate? And some members, you can say, I have a request for information. Again, this is a question. It is not a point in debate. It is not anything to do with debate. You're just simply asking a question. I have a request for information. I have a question. State your question. So this is when members during debate can direct questions to the chair. Notice the questions are directed to the chair, and they're either answered by the chair or the chair can ask the proponent to answer the question. This is very important to have an orderly meeting and not to have any cross-talking. Okay, members vote to go to letter ballot. The chair will restate the motion. The question is on the adoption of the motion to authorize proposal P35, items 163 and 164 for letter ballot. So you know what you're voting on. Those in favor, raise your voting cards until counted. Those opposed, raise your voting cards until counted. There are so many votes in the affirmative and so many negative votes. There being a 2/3 vote in the affirmative, the motion is adopted. Or there not being a 2/3 vote in the affirmative, the motion is lost. And then the chair will announce the next item of business. Okay, let's talk about debate. What does debate mean? It's a discussion of the merits of the pending question. It must be germane to that pending question. It must pertain to that pending question. Nothing else, just that one, whatever's on the floor. How does Robert's Rules avoid personal attacks in debate? All speaking is directed to and through the chair. How many times may members speak on any debatable motion on the same day? 2 times for 2 minutes based on the standing rules that you adopted at the beginning of the meeting. What vote is required to stop debate or to change the limits of debate? These take away your rights. It's a 2/3 vote. A common way to remember the motions in Roberts is all motions require a majority vote, except the ones that take away your rights. They require a 2/3 vote. Who has preference and recognition? The person who makes the motion or a person who has not spoken in debate. And what is the effective debate? It must be germane. It must relate to the motion being considered. I speak in favor of this motion. Why? I urge members to vote yes. Or I speak against this motion. Tell them why. And I urge members to vote no. Okay, now let's talk about the request for information. What is it? It's a request directed to the chair or through the chair to another member for information relevant to the business at hand. It is not related to procedure. It's a question. Merely asking a question is not counted as speaking in debate. While a member is speaking debate, you might say, well, what if another member wants to ask a question to them? You would direct it to the chair. The chair asks if the speaker is willing to be interrupted. To protect decorum, members are not allowed to carry on discussion directly with one another. It always goes through the chair. The member desiring to ask the question rises and addresses the chair by saying, Mr. Chair, or the member yield for a question. An inquiry of this kind may also be made for the purpose of reminding a speaker of a point to be made, or it may be intended to rebut the position, but it must always be in the form of a question and directed to the chair. Okay, now let's talk about voting. The chair will repeat the motion for item number, whatever, to be authorized for letter ballot. This motion requires at least a 2/3 vote of the total votes cast by persons entitled to vote, excluding blanks and abstentions. If you choose not to vote, that's your choice. We live in a free country. You don't have to vote if you don't want to vote, but it's 2/3 of the total votes cast. What is a majority vote? A majority vote means more than half of the persons entitled to vote. This is used to decide ordinary motions, including the motion to amend. More than half, it's always interesting, and I know you guys are all scientists and mathematicians, you understand this. If you have 20 votes, a lot of people think more than half is 10. No, that is only half. You need to have 11 votes for that motion to pass. So it's more than half. What happens if there's a tie vote? The chair gets to vote to break the tie. Okay, why is a 2/3 vote required to close debate or limit or extend debate? We said this. It takes away your right to speak in debate, or it changes a rule that was already adopted. What procedure can be used on routine matters without putting a motion to vote? Unanimous consent. This is a very valuable tool that is available to the presiding officer to expedite business. The chair will say it's a two-step process. If there is no objection, we will take a recess for 10 minutes. There being no objection, the meeting is recessed for 10 minutes. That's a two-step process. Or the chair can use a one-step process and simply say, without objection, we will recess for 10 minutes. If the chair is abusing their power by railroading business, by using unanimous consent, all a member has to do to stop that is to say, I object. If you say, I object, it forces the chair to state the motion. If it's debatable, the chair can ask for debate, and it forces the chair to take a vote. If the motion's not debatable, you wouldn't debate, you just take the vote. All right, now let's talk about the different motions you can use and the words for making these motions. The first one is if you want to change the wording of the motion. It's the motion to amend. And when it's done properly, it's very specific. I move to strike out words. So my favorite motion is a motion to buy a blue couch. A motion to strike out words would be, I move to strike out blue and insert red. Very specific. Debate pertains only to the color. If it's blue or red or whatever, striped, whatever you want. But it's very specific. I move to insert words. I move to insert velvet before the word couch. If the motion is adopted, it would be to buy a blue velvet couch. I move to add words. The motion would be I move to amend the motion to add the words from Costco. So you have a second. It's moved in second to add the words from Costco. If the motion is adopted, it'd be to buy a blue couch from Costco. I move to strike out words or insert words. I move to substitute a paragraph. There's a lot of different ways to change the wording of a motion, but it's very important to be very specific. You just don't want to say, I move to change the motion to be, because people aren't sure exactly which words you want to strike out or insert, or strike out and insert. Another motion you will probably want to use is divide the question. I request that item numbers, whatever, be considered separately. A motion to take a recess, I move to recess for 10 minutes, or I move to recess until 2 o'clock. Motions to close debate, I move the previous question. To enforce the rules, point of order. Appeal, I appeal from the decision of the chair. A request for information, I have a request for information. And then you ask your question. And if it pertains to parliamentary procedure or the rules of order, it's a parliamentary inquiry. That's a type of question concerning Robert's rules. Okay, let's talk about motions. After the proponent gives the presentation, individuals will have an opportunity to ask questions directly to the proponent. When there are no further questions, the chair will resume presiding and a member will make a motion in the affirmative. When you make a motion in the affirmative, voting yes means yes and no means no. You might ask, what if the member makes a motion in the negative? I move that we not adopt item number 3, second. This becomes confusing because yes means not adopt and no means to adopt. So you want to avoid making motions in the negative. The chair should ask members to restate the motion in the affirmative if a member should make it in the negative. And again, it would be, I move that we adopt number 23, and you vote no if you're against. A lot of people feel uncomfortable making a motion to adopt something that they are against. And you can, it's okay. You just have to vote no if you're against it. Another alternative that's perhaps quicker is the chair can simply restate the motion in the affirmative. So if a member says, I move that we not adopt number 23, the chair can say, it is moved and seconded to adopt number 23. And someone said, well, that's not what I said. And I would explain to them, if you say it in the affirmative, yes means yes and no means no. If the chair fails to do this and states the motion in the negative, it's very important for a member at that time to quickly raise a point of order and ask the motion to be stated in the affirmative. If you wait until after the vote is taken, you've wasted a lot of time and you're going to have a lot of confusion and it's going to be a mess. So it's very important at the beginning, when the chair states the motion, that you would raise that point of order. Will the chair state the motion in the affirmative that we adopt item number 23? People will appreciate you raising that point of order. So you say, what happens if the member makes one motion for all items, which is in a series of related motions? A member can make a motion to divide the question if you want to. You don't have to. It's okay to adopt the whole series. But if you want to break it up into different groups, you can make a motion to divide the question. You can divide it into as many groups as you want to. And the alternative is if a member makes a motion to adopt only specific items. So if you want to adopt some items that you think everyone's going to vote in the affirmative, and then you make a motion to adopt other items where you think people might vote against them, that's one way that you can do it. When you make a motion to divide a question, if the items are related, it's a motion to amend. It's motion to divide a question, but it's the same process as the motion to amend. It requires a majority vote. If the items in the series are not related to each other, then if you say, I want to pull item number 3 to be considered separately, it can be done on the request or the demand of one member. And I would say it's up to the presiding officer to realize if the motions are related or not related. Okay, so does anyone have any questions or comments?